Welcome to Learning React with me. In this video, we are going to see what is ref in React. So ref is just a short term of references. Refs are harmful, we'll see why as we proceed, but it's a basic way provided by React to access nodes in the DOM or elements created in the render method and work with them. In the end of previous video, I mentioned there are two ways to access form data. Let's try the first approach where we use onChange event on the inputs. So let me add onChange. Let's create event handler methods as well. I'll name this as onNameChange and this one as onAdminChange. And I'll create a method for this. So these event handlers would receive a parameter event by default. We don't have to do anything. Browser will take care of passing event to this event handler. So let me paste this parameter here. And inside the event handler, we have something called target. So event.target, and this target has a property called value. This would give us the actual value this input holds at the time this event handler is triggered. So to store these values, let me add some state. So let's create a constructor, and inside this let's call a super method, otherwise we will not be able to access this keyword. And let's add a state object which has two properties: name, this would be null value or empty string in the beginning, and I have a flag is admin which is false. And we have these event handlers. Inside these event handlers we have to set these values based on which input is triggered. So when I click or enter value in this input, this event will be triggered, and here I have to set the name property in this state. So I'll make use of this dot set state and set the name property to event.target.value, and similarly I'll set the value of is admin. So here instead of name I'll replace it with is admin, and this is not a text box so it won't have any value. Instead, for a checkbox we'll have a property called checked. So this would be true or false based on whether this admin checkbox is checked or not. And to see if this state is updated properly or not, let me print this state using json.stringify of this dot state. And if you remember my previous videos on the state and event handlers, I explained that we need to bind this keyword to access this inside the event handlers, otherwise it would display error on the screen. So I would go to the constructor, take all these event handlers and bind them to this keyword. I'll do the same for all event handlers. In the previous video we didn't bind handle submit event to this keyword because we didn't make use of this keyword inside it, so it worked. Now I want to console this dot state here, and that's the reason I am binding this keyword to this event as well. Now we have everything in place, so let's go back to the browser, clear this. There is a typo here, JSON, save it. and on name change is not defined. Okay, we need to use this keyword here since it is a class based component. Let's save, and we have this login form, and the initial state is name has a null value since we didn't enter anything here, and isAdmin is set to false. Now I'll start typing in this text box. Let me type test user. So if you observe, every time I type, the state is getting updated. That means every time I enter a character in this text box, the event on name change is getting triggered, and this dot set state is setting the name in the state to latest value of event target. Let me console log the event.target.value so that we know what value it is updating every time. So let's clear it and I start typing. So if you observe in the console, every time I enter something, this is getting triggered and it is assigning the latest value to state every time. And when I click on checkbox, since this has only two values, either true or false, this is updating to the same value which we have here. If you want to avoid multiple calls just to access the input value and set it to state, we can use ref. And to do this, we can simply make use of ref.createRef. This would be initially null. Let's create a property to store this value. Let's call it nameRef because we will access name input using this ref. Now let's connect this HTML element to the nameRef which we created above, and to do so we need to use a keyword ref, and this ref keyword would bind the input element, the element which takes the name of the user, to this dot name ref. Let me go to the handle submit event and console log this dot name ref and see what it is printing. So let me refresh this and let's enter some dummy data test user. Now I'll click on add user. So we have a console log. This is coming from handle submit method. So this is our first console which prints this dot name ref. So ref is nothing but an object, and this object contains a DOM element. In our case, it is this input element which takes a username, and this object has a property called value which holds the current value which the input element contains. So instead of triggering this onChange event every time we enter a character in this text box, we can directly use this ref.current.value property to access this updated value. Now let's go to the handle submit. So I'll console log directly current.value. Let me remove this extra console and let me add some text ref and save it. Now when we go to the browser, enter some test user 123 and click on add user, we got a console log which is coming from ref.current.value. Now since we have implemented ref and avoided the multiple state updates, we can remove this line of code. And for checkbox, it's just two values, true or false. So onChange should work fine. We don't have to use the ref keyword. Now if we enter something test user, if you observe, the state is not getting updated. Once I click on add user, the state got updated at once directly with the complete value. And if you want to reset these values once we click on add submit, you can simply go back to the handle submit and here you can add this line of code. We are just assigning an empty string to the current.value. And if we go back, I'll type something, add user, my state is updated, and the input got reset to empty string. So refs are not recommended since we have access directly to DOM. In our example, we are just reading input values and removing the user entered data, so that's fine to use ref. So these are the two ways which we can access form data using event handlers and ref. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to InterviewPro.